My name is Iris Blackwood. I'm 46 years old, and for most of my life, people saw me as the unlucky one in the family. I wasn't the smartest, not the richest, and certainly not the favorite. My brother was the golden child, my sister was the beauty, and well, I was the one they laughed at quietly when they thought I couldn't hear. But here's what they never knew. Fate had plans for me. It all started one rainy afternoon when I stopped at a gas station after work. I was tired, soaked from the storm, and all I wanted was a cup of cheap coffee. But there, near the cashier, was a glowing sign. Mega jackpot, $50 million. Something in me whispered, "Buy the ticket." I did. I slipped it into my purse and almost forgot about it, until the night the numbers rolled across the screen and matched mine. $50 million. My hands shook so violently I nearly dropped the ticket. I wanted to scream, to dance, to tell someone. But then reality hit me. My family. I could already picture their greedy faces, the fake hugs, the way they would circle me like vultures. No, I decided. I would not tell a soul. Not yet. Instead, I lived as if nothing had changed. I kept driving my old car, wore the same clothes, even clipped coupons at the supermarket, and that's when the mockery began. At family dinners, my brother leaned back in his designer suit and smirked. "Still driving that rust bucket, Iris?" he asked once, loud enough for everyone to hear. The table laughed. My sister whispered to her daughter, "Don't end up like Aunt Iris, poor and pitiful." I smiled. I let them talk, because the more they mocked me, the sweeter my silence became. They thought I was weak, but I was simply waiting. I had already bought something that would change everything, a sprawling estate, hidden behind tall iron gates with chandeliers that glittered like stars and a wine cellar older than our family name. But I didn't move in. Not yet. Because revenge is best served cold. And my chance came sooner than I expected. Dinner with my family was always a battlefield, though they dressed it up with wine glasses and expensive tablecloths. That particular evening, I remember the long oak table shining under the chandelier, the polished silverware glinting as if ready for war. My brother had invited everyone to his new penthouse, something he loved to flaunt because reminding others of his wealth was his favorite sport. I arrived in my worn navy blue dress. It wasn't old, but compared to my sister's silk gown and my brother's custom-tailored suit, it might as well have been rags. I could feel their eyes scanning me the moment I stepped in, and then the whispers began. "Still working that dead-end job?" my sister asked, swirling her wine glass as if it were liquid gold. I shrugged, setting down my coat. "It pays the bills." She smirked. "Barely." The table erupted in light laughter. My brother leaned back in his chair, his Rolex catching the light. "Honestly, Iris, you should think about selling that little house of yours. It must be crumbling by now. Unless, of course, you're waiting for one of us to take care of you." My stomach tightened, but I smiled. "I'll manage." They never knew how much power I held in silence. Each cruel word, each mocking glance, it was fuel for the storm I was preparing. Dinner went on with courses I couldn't care less about. Lobster tails, roasted duck, wines I couldn't pronounce. My brother bragged about his latest business deal. My sister gossiped about neighbors. And every so often, the spotlight returned to me. "Do you even own a proper dress, Iris?" my sister asked, suddenly, her tone dripping with false innocence. "I mean, for important occasions." I glanced at her gown, worth more than some people's rent. I suppose it depends on what you call important. My brother chuckled, waving at the maid for more wine. Don't be cruel, Margaret. Iris just isn't cut out for finer things. She's simple. That's why she's alone. The word stung, though I hid it well. Alone. Poor. Pitiful. That's what they thought of me. What they didn't realize was that while they mocked me, I had already written checks larger than their yearly salaries. I had investments running under names they'd never recognize, companies that quietly funneled profit into accounts only I could access. But that night, I played my part, the poor, invisible sister. Then came the moment that nearly broke me. My niece, barely 20, looked at me with pity in her eyes. "Aunt Iris," she said softly, "don't you ever wish you were more successful?" The room fell silent, all eyes turning to me. My brother smirked. My sister leaned forward eagerly, waiting to watch me squirm. I lifted my glass of water, held it steady, and met my niece's gaze. "Success," I said slowly, "isn't always what people think it is. Sometimes success is simply knowing when to stay quiet." The words hung in the air. My brother barked out a laugh, my sister rolled her eyes, and the conversation moved on. But my niece kept staring, as if she sensed something more. By the end of the night, they were drunk on wine and arrogance. As I slipped on my coat, my brother clapped me on the back. "Don't worry, Iris," he said smugly. "Someday you'll catch a break. Until then, you've got us." I walked out into the night, my heart pounding. They thought they had me cornered, humiliated, crushed. But as the city lights shimmered ahead, I knew the truth. They had no idea what was coming. Because one day soon, I would stop being the poor sister in their eyes. I would become the woman who shattered their illusion of superiority. And when that day came, every cruel word they ever spoke would come back to haunt them. The weeks after that dinner only made things worse. My brother and sister seemed to grow bolder with every insult, as if mocking me gave them strength. They paraded their success on social media, posting photos of luxury vacations, designer clothes, and lavish parties. And whenever I dared show up to family gatherings, it was the same cruel routine. Jokes at my expense, smirks exchanged across the table, and whispers behind my back that they never cared to hide. But there was one evening I will never forget. It was my father's birthday, his 82nd. We gathered at the old family estate, the place where we had grown up. The air smelled of roses from my mother's long-forgotten garden, and the walls echoed with memories of laughter that no longer felt real. I wore the same plain dress they had ridiculed before, on purpose. I wanted them comfortable, arrogant, blind, and it worked. My sister greeted me with a tight smile. "Oh, Iris, you wore that again?" My brother didn't even bother hiding his laugh. "Maybe she's trying to start a tradition, wearing the same thing to every important event. Economical, I suppose." Their laughter filled the hallway. I clenched my jaw, but my eyes stayed calm. Inside, though, something shifted. It wasn't just annoyance anymore. It was fire. During dinner, they performed as usual, boasting about money, careers, and connections. My sister bragged about her daughter's engagement ring, a diamond so large it looked gaudy. My brother gloated about closing a deal that would make him another few $1,000,000. Then, as if on cue, the spotlight turned to me. "So, Iris," my brother said, leaning forward, his wineglass tilting dangerously close to spilling, "any exciting news? Or is it the same routine? Work, bills, and what else do you even do these days?" The table erupted in muffled laughter. I looked at him steadily. I said softly, life has its surprises. Oh, come on, my sister chimed in. Don't be so mysterious. Unless, of course, your surprise is that you managed to buy a new pair of shoes. Her words sliced through me, but I refused to flinch. Instead, I let a small smile curl at the edge of my lips. You know, I said, setting down my fork, sometimes the greatest wealth isn't shown on the surface. Sometimes it's what people don't see that matters most. The table fell briefly silent. My brother squinted at me, suspicion flickering in his eyes for the first time. But then he burst out laughing, waving his hand dismissively. There she goes again, our philosopher in rags. You should write fortune cookies, Iris. You'd be brilliant at it. Their laughter filled the hallway. I clenched my jaw, but my eyes stayed calm. Inside, though, something shifted. It wasn't just annoyance anymore. It was fire. During dinner, they performed as usual, boasting about money, careers, and connections. My sister bragged about her daughter's engagement ring, a diamond so large it looked gaudy. My brother gloated about closing a deal that would make him another few $1 million. Then, as if on cue, the spotlight turned to me. So, Iris, he said, leaning forward, his wineglass tilting dangerously close to spilling, any exciting news? Or is it the same routine? Work, bills, and what else do you even do these days? The table erupted in muffled laughter. I looked at him steadily. I said softly, life has its surprises. Oh, come on, my sister chimed in. Don't be so mysterious. Unless, of course, your surprise is that you managed to buy a new pair of shoes. Her words sliced through me, but I refused to flinch. Instead, I let a small smile curl at the edge of my lips. You know, I said, setting down my fork, sometimes the greatest wealth isn't shown on the surface. Sometimes it's what people don't see that matters most. The table fell briefly silent. My brother squinted at me, suspicion flickering in his eyes for the first time. But then he burst out laughing, waving his hand dismissively. There she goes again, our philosopher in rags. You should write fortune cookies, Iris. You'd be brilliant at it. Their laughter filled the hallway, but I didn't join them. I just sat back, listening, memorizing every word, because I knew something they didn't. My silence wouldn't last forever. After dinner, I stepped outside into the cool night air. The stars glittered above me, and the garden smelled of wet earth. My niece, the same one who had asked me about success before, followed me out. Aunt Iris, she whispered, her voice uncertain, why do you let them treat you like that? I looked at her, really looked. There was curiosity in her eyes, but also empathy, a rare thing in our family. I said gently, because patience is a weapon, and when the right moment comes, they won't know what hit them. She frowned, not understanding, but one day she would. That night, as I drove home in my old car, I couldn't stop smiling. They thought I was powerless, invisible. But they didn't know about the mansion, the hidden accounts, or the investments that grew silently under my name. They didn't know I was worth more than all of them combined. And soon, very soon, everything would change. The morning after my father's birthday dinner, I woke with a strange calmness in my chest. For years, I had swallowed their insults, endured their mocking, and pretended that their cruelty didn't matter. But now, the time for patience was over. I sat at my kitchen table, sipping black coffee, and laid out everything I had been preparing in secret. Stacks of property deeds, investment statements, and trust documents, all tucked neatly in a folder with my name on it. Proof that I wasn't the pitiful Iris they had mocked for years, but a woman who had built an empire in silence. And in the middle of that folder was the crown jewel, The deed to the mansion, my mansion, the sprawling estate hidden behind wrought iron gates, with marble floors, chandeliers, and gardens that stretched farther than the eye could see. None of them had the faintest idea it existed. I ran my hand over the smooth paper, imagining the looks on their faces when they saw it for the first time. The perfect opportunity came just 2 weeks later. My sister was hosting an engagement party for her daughter. Everyone would be there, the whole family, the in-laws, and half the town's social circle. And I knew exactly how I wanted to arrive. In the days leading up to the party, I made quiet arrangements. A sleek black car with tinted windows, a new gown, elegant but understated, tailored perfectly to my frame, jewelry that sparkled without screaming for attention, and most importantly, a guest list addition, my personal lawyer, who would be carrying a certain folder, ready to reveal the truth if the moment demanded it. The night of the engagement party arrived. The air was crisp, and the venue, a luxury banquet hall dripping with crystal lights, buzzed with chatter and music. I stood outside in the shadows for a moment, steadying my breath. I could hear their laughter drifting from inside. I could almost predict the insults waiting for me at the door. But this time, I wasn't walking in as their punching bag. This time, I was walking in as a storm. When I entered, heads turned. My brother's smirk faltered for just a second, and my sister's eyes narrowed in suspicion. I greeted them politely, as if nothing had changed. "Oh, Iris," my sister said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "Or did you borrow it?" The laughter that followed was predictable. I didn't flinch. I just smiled. Because tonight, the tables were about to turn. As the night went on, I watched from the sidelines. My family boasted to guests about their wealth, their influence, their power. They told stories that made themselves the heroes and me the fool. But then came the moment. A guest, a close family friend, approached me and asked how I was doing. Before I could answer, my brother cut in, laughing. "She's fine. Iris doesn't need much. She lives small, always scraping by." The group chuckled, eyes glancing at me with pity. And that was it, the spark that lit the fire. I straightened my shoulders, locked eyes with my brother, and let a smile spread across my face. "Actually," I said, my voice clear and calm, "there's something I've been meaning to share, and tonight feels like the perfect night." The room quieted, curiosity buzzing through the air. I motioned to my lawyer, who stepped forward with the folder. My family's faces shifted, confusion, then unease. I didn't open it yet, not yet. I wanted to savor the moment. Instead, I raised my glass and said, "For years, you've all mocked me, called me poor, treated me like less. But sometimes, silence hides the loudest truths. And tonight, you're going to hear mine." Gasps rippled through the crowd. My sister paled, my brother's jaw clenched, and the whispers began to spread like wildfire. I set my glass down and felt the weight of every eye in the room. The storm was here, and I was ready to let it break. The room was silent, except for the faint clinking of glasses being set down and the whisper of silk gowns brushing against chairs. All eyes were locked on me, the woman they had ridiculed for years. My sister's smirk had vanished, my brother's confident posture slouched ever so slightly, and I could feel the weight of their unease pressing down on them. Iris Blackwood, the poor one, the failure, had just declared that she had something to reveal. My lawyer placed the folder gently on the table in front of me. I let my fingers rest on it for a moment, savoring the anticipation, the years of humiliation, of being the family joke, all condensed into this one moment. I lifted my head, straightened my shoulders, and began. "For as long as I can remember," I said slowly, my voice carrying across the hall, "I've been the shadow in this family.
The one you laughed at, the one you pitied, the one you pushed aside. But shadows, I paused, letting the silence stretch, can grow very powerful when no one is watching. Gasps fluttered through the crowd. My brother shifted in his seat, forcing a chuckle. "Oh, come on, Iris, what is this? Another one of your little speeches?" Not a speech, a confession, and proof. I opened the folder, pulling out the first document, the lottery certificate. The golden seal gleamed under the chandelier lights, bold letters declaring me the winner of $50 million. The room erupted in gasps. My sister's hand flew to her mouth, her eyes wide with disbelief. My brother leaned forward, squinting as if the words might rearrange themselves into something less horrifying for him. "This can't be real," he muttered. "Oh, but it is," I said calmly. 2 years ago, I bought a ticket at a gas station. A ticket that changed everything. I didn't tell anyone. Not because I was ashamed, but because I wanted to see who you truly were without money involved. And what I saw, I let my gaze sweep across the table, meeting each of their eyes, was greed, cruelty, arrogance. The whispers grew louder. Guests leaned closer to each other, eyes darting between me and my family like they were watching a drama unfold on stage. I pulled out the next set of papers, deeds to properties, investment statements, bank documents, each one proof of the empire I had quietly built while they mocked me. While you laughed at me, I was buying. While you called me poor, I was investing. While you treated me like a failure, I became wealthier than all of you combined. My brother's face flushed red. This is ridiculous. If you had that kind of money, why live like a beggar? Why embarrass yourself all these years? I met his glare with a smile. Because revenge tastes sweeter when it's unexpected. The hall fell into stunned silence. My sister finally found her voice, shrill and trembling. "You mean, all this time? You let us humiliate us? Let me," I cut her off sharply. "Yes, because I knew the day would come when the truth would destroy every cruel word you ever threw at me." Her face crumbled, and for the first time in years, I saw fear in her eyes. The crowd began to murmur, some guests shaking their heads at my family, others staring at me in awe. My niece, the only one who had ever shown me kindness, whispered, "I knew you were different." I reached out and squeezed her hand. "Never let anyone tell you your worth. Not even family." By now, my brother's fists were clenched on the table, his pride shattered. "So what now, Iris? You think money makes you better than us?" "No," I said softly. "What makes me better is that I never needed to destroy others to feel important. I only needed patience." And with that, I stood, gathering the papers back into the folder. My lawyer followed behind me, the echo of our steps filling the stunned silence. I turned one last time at the doorway, my eyes meeting theirs. "For years, you mocked me for being poor. But tonight, the only thing poor here is your character." The crowd gasped one last time, and I walked out into the night. Outside, the air was cool, crisp, alive. I lifted my face to the stars, and for the first time in my life, I felt truly free. Not because of the money, not even because of the revenge, but because I had finally taken back my dignity. The woman they once pitied was gone, and Iris Blackwood had risen.